Well, hi, it's good to see you again. Today we're going to talk about academic versus business writing. By this stage in your degree, you're pretty close to the end. The next people you're going to be writing for aren't going to be professors like me, but they're going to be business executives. And so I wanted to point out the differences between what we do in the classroom for academic purposes and the differences in what business executives really expect from you when you join their forces. So this first slide here, we're talking about the focus of business people, right? Business folks, to them, time is money. They want to get to the point right up front. They don't want to be playing around. And so they're really looking for clarity, oftentimes from a very confusing world. Um, and definitely, business folks do not share academic articles or peer-reviewed studies or any of those kinds of things. If you're lucky, they'll be reading a little bit of the Harvard Business Review, perhaps, some McKinsey reports online, but they're definitely not going to be, going to the library and pulling out sage articles on business to any great extent. Business folks really look for reports, concept papers, memos. Sometimes they call those white papers. These are kind of papers that get to the point right up front, and they expect you to tell them what you're talking about right at the beginning. Don't make them go fishing for what the theme of the purpose is, right? So you need to state your idea first, and then provide the details back up if necessary. We only use an indirect approach when we're writing, when we're trying to convey bad news, right? If it's bad news, like you need to terminate someone, or there's a problem with the product or quality or some kind of a recall, sometimes you state the reasons why this is happening up front to kind of soften the blow, or perhaps use empathy if you have to reject someone or terminate someone. But for the most part, you want to get to the point right up front, tell them what you're going to discuss in clear and concise methods so that they can put their head in the right time, in the right frame of mind. How do we do that? Well, we use white space, which means some bullets or clusters of information and lots of white on your paper. We cluster our information for clarity, similar kinds of information we put together, or chronologies we put together. We use it for easy access as well. You should use headings or underline or bold. Whatever you decide to use in your papers, use them consistently. You probably got some training on some of this in your APA style formatting. You can carry some of that forward, at least the structure and the consistency of APA writing into your business memos. Like I mentioned before, state the idea right up front first. You want to capture the audience's attention by providing them value. They're going to look at the beginning of whatever you're writing and decide, am I going to continue with this or not? Most documents get put aside. So you got to capture their attention by telling them what's in it for them, why it's important for them. And you also maintain your authority or credibility by providing referenceable facts, statistics, examples, so that they have some credence. They take credence in what you're trying to tell them. So I wanted to talk a little bit about why we have been doing the APA style in our scholarly environment. A couple of big important points here I'll go over. APA really provides a foundation for effective and efficient communication because it helps authors present their ideas in clear, concise, and a very organized manner. Let me give an example. Most scholarly articles will start off with an abstract at the beginning, right? Maybe some keywords that help you search to find that document in the first place. Then they'll have an introduction, perhaps a background. They'll talk about a literature review to place this subject in the proper context for the reader, how they got to where they are, right? They may have a section on the study sites or the sample, right? And why they chose that sample and the benefits of that sample, right? They may have a section on methods and procedures of how they tabulated or collected the data and reported on the data. They'll have a discussion section at the end and maybe an analysis of their methods they use to interpret the information, whether it be statistical analysis or some other method. And then at the end, they'll have some recommendations and a conclusion, perhaps, maybe even talk about limitations in the study, where it works and what were some of the shortcomings. or things to look out for of how it might not be generalizable across other contexts. So scholars and writers become comfortable with this kind of a structure. When you're looking to find information, you want to look maybe right at the beginning at the abstract to say, is this even close to what I wanted to talk about here, right? And then you may go to the introduction or take a look at the literature review to see if those authors are familiar to you, if they're working in the same stream of research you're working in. Does it apply to you, right? And then right away you might go down to the discussion session and say, well, what did this person find with this information here? When you have to go through perhaps hundreds of studies, right, you're looking for this efficiency so you can get right to the point and filter out the things that aren't appropriate for what you're working on, right, and hone in on the things that are very important for you, that give you some benefit. So this uniformity and consistently really enables readers to focus on their ideas, conduct their research in an efficient manner, and it certainly avoids a lot of distracting format variations. You want the typeset to be the same. You want the fonts to be more or less the same. Like, you don't want a lot of colors in your paper. You want the tables and the charts to be properly designed where you can find kinds of information in an organized manner. If that's a hodgepodge of things, it's just going to distract you. You're going to have to spend too much time getting through format changes as opposed to understanding the meaning of the information being provided. It also allows you to scan quickly for key points or findings and sources of information because our writing is structured in a very familiar way. The second big thing is writers who use APA citations command more authority on a subject. It's deemed more professional, right? It's the reader's going to have a first impression on your writing, and if it's all over the place with all kinds of fonts and colors, a distracting environment, they're going to say this person's probably not a real scholar, so I'm not going to pay much attention to this, right? It helps you to demonstrate your authority, your professionalism, and separate out facts versus opinion on things. So back to our short and concise message here. Less is more in terms of business writing, right? Business executives prefer short writing, short sentences. And there's some good important reasons for that. For example here, a sentence with a length of 8 words provides a general 100% comprehension on the part of the audience, right? Shorter sentences increase comprehension. You move that to 15 words, almost doubling the size of the sentence, we're still up at a good 90% comprehension. After all, the goal of writing is to communicate, right? And so if the comprehension's not there, it's just a waste of time. 19 words gets us to an 80% comprehension, not too bad. But by the time we get to 28 words in a sentence, right, we only have a 50% comprehension rate. What does that mean? That means your reader didn't understand half of what you said, right? And that's not very effective whatsoever. So when you're taking a look at your editing phase, right, you need to check your work. You need to revise your sentences for clarity and conciseness, right? Paragraphs should be 3 to 5 sentences each. Too many words, flabby writing, and corporate gobbledygook, right, really raises suspicion on the part of the audience, right? And so the final message here is less is more in your sentences. Get upfront to the point and be clear and concise in each one of your sentences. Here we find an example of an executive summary. You're often called upon to provide executive summaries. This is something that executives look at right off the bat. In fact, they use the executive summary to get a good understanding of everything that follows, and they make a choice at the end. Am I going to handle this personally, or am I going to delegate this to one of my chief lieutenants? So you've got to put everything that's important in the following document in the executive summary, and you only get 1 page to do it, right? So here's an example. It's provided in some of the learning materials here. This person is using clustering. They're grouping information using headings. They're using bold, and they're using bullets to state the purpose of the report here, to talk about the methods they use to conduct their market research here, the findings and conclusions, and then a recommendation at the end. So any executive can read everything that's going to be following, all the details right up front, and get the gist of what they're talking about here. And they can decide if they want to take the time to read further, or hand it to, say, someone who's in charge of marketing, for example. And so that's the purpose of an executive summary. We need to make sure it's there. Many times students or professionals mistake an executive summary for an introduction. And they kind of introduce everything they're going to talk about in the beginning instead of or a background, but they don't provide all the pertinent facts from start of the purpose to the final recommendations in the executive summary. And that's where they go wrong. So keep in mind, the executive summary has to give an executive everything they need to make a decision, either to pursue further or to delegate this to someone else. Here's some examples we can start with here. Revising for conciseness. Let's just go through a few of these together and think about these as we go on and try and think about it. Do you find yourself using some of these expressions, what we call flabby expressions? Flabby would be considered, at this point in time, right? How could we say that more concisely? How about now, right? Here's another one, a flabby expression. Due to the fact that, how often have you heard that, right? How could you reduce this? What word could you choose to substitute those 5 words with one? Because. Sure. How about another one? In very few cases, 4 words here. How can we reduce the length, make it easier to understand, be more concise? Sure, you can use the word seldom. Try this one. Despite the fact that, we hear this often, right? What can you use to be more concise with this one? Yeah, you can say although. In the near future, last one will do. How can we make this more concise? What word would you choose? Sure, soon. That gets us right to the point. The next thing we can do, we can limit long lead-ins. Limiting long lead-ins. For example, wordy lead-ins like this. This is to let you know that Monday is a holiday. Maybe some of this comes out of the HR folks and they're going to say, as a result, workers won't have to come to work. How can we make this more concise? Monday is a holiday. Get right to the point. We've reduced the word count here by half or more, right? You're conserving precious time for your readers, right? And you're more clear and direct. Here's another one. I am sending this email to announce that our internal audit begins on January 5th. How could we revise this to be more clear? Sure, our internal audit begins on January 5th. There are other ways too we can avoid some of this. In this section here, we talk about revising for conciseness, right? We want to drop unnecessary there is, are, or it is, was fillers in some of our writing, right? Let me give you an example. There were 45, let me start over. There were more than 45 visitors who commented on her blog. How could we eliminate some of this is, are, or is, was filters? We get right to the point. We just say, more than 45 visitors commented on her blog. Here's another. It was a hilarious animal video that went viral. How can we get more concise with this? Get rid of the was. Sure, a hilarious animal video went viral. In each of these cases here, we're saving almost half, sometimes more, word length, and it gets our goal of conciseness and clarity. Here's another example we can use here. We can reduce word redundancies themselves, right? Combined together, blah, 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 right? How can we be more concise here? No, we just choose one, combined, right? How many times do you hear people say the exact same thing over there or something similar? How can we reduce the redundancy here? Sure, we just say exact or same. Choose one of them. Or in my personal opinion, right? Of course, it's your personal opinion. There's kind of a redundancy there. It's your opinion, right? It's always personal. How can we reduce that? Sure, just say my opinion. Refer back to section 565. How can we reduce that? Refer. Simple as that, right? So we cut these in half in most cases in terms of word length. You'll find that you use a lot of these expressions in many of our writing because we've been trained to pack a lot of words into reports. How many times did your professors tell you, I wanted 10,000 words on X, Y, or Z, right? And you said, okay, well, let me see. How can I add some adjectives here? How can I pack this out? And you come up with these long lead-ins. That's how you were trained because you were trying to meet minimum word lengths. In business, we're trying to do just the opposite. Here's another example here. We can purge empty words, right? For example here, in the case of General Motors, the car company was reorganized. Whew, there's a lot of words there, right? How can we make this more concise? Sure, General Motors was reorganized. Here's another one. We are aware of the fact that many managers need assistance. How many times have you heard this, we are aware, right? We know many managers need assistance. When it arrived, I deposited your check immediately. How can we make this a little bit more concise? I deposited your check more immediately, right? I deposited your check immediately because, of course, it's assumed that when it arrived, right? So you don't need those extra words in the front. In fact, when it arrived is kind of just a distraction. Okay, this next part here, we're going to be talking about footnotes. APA style permits users to include footnotes for clarification and additional content based on the preferences of the professor. In my class, the appropriate use of footnotes is okay. Footnotes gives us a benefit, right? It doesn't make us search and go to the back, the last page of a document. We can just look down at the bottom of the page and see the immediate footnote for some pertinent information. And we're not shuffling through a lot of pages. It makes us a little bit more efficient in the way we consume the material. The business world, as I mentioned before, does not use APA formats for the most part, though it favors highly structured, concise, and effective writing for a variety of purposes in our writing, right? In the business sense, we're usually writing to inform someone, to persuade someone, to instruct or train someone on some kind of a process in the business world, right? In our class, there are some activities where you might find footnotes beneficial, right? Projects 3 and 4 are question and answer kinds of activities, right? So you may want to have a footnote at the bottom just to explain or go into further detail or provide some rationale to something in a concise manner. On discussion boards, you may want to use footnotes as you post responses or your initial postings. Or other projects we have in our class when used to clarify or provide additional content in a concise way. These are all very acceptable in my class, so feel free to use footnotes. Read up on footnotes if you want, because they'll probably provide you some advantage in your future writing. Soon you're going to be transferring to the real world, right? You're going to be leaving the academic world. And that's where footnotes are most often found. If you look at some white papers or research studies that are circulating in the business world, you'll often find a lot of footnotes at the bottom of those same pages where the text is found. Global managers really have to be efficient these days, resourceful and adaptive, right? In real terms, time is money, right? And we have a limited amount of time every day to pursue all the things that we're being asked to do all the time. So we're trying to be really effective here. Here's some examples on footnotes. Footnote examples. Here's some guides to footnotes and APA style here. You can notice here it says the example of text in a research paper, and it has a superscript, number 1. The footnotes are located at the bottom of the page below a line, usually, that kind of separates the text from the footnote section of a single page, right? And so you'll see here a superscript 1, first name, last name, title of a book, and the page number. You can also use footnotes to elaborate further on a topic or provide a little bit more clarity or background information. If you look at the right-hand side here on this slide, you'll notice here how to insert a note, and there's a superscript there. It says, hey, there's something a little bit more to be found at the bottom here, and you can use that. Track the superscript 1 down to the bottom, and it gives a little bit more details about whatever you're talking about. You can insert a footnote or endnote by going to the References tab, Footnote section, insert footnote, or insert an endnote. Okay, so these are easily implemented in Word just by using the Insert Endnote or Insert Footnote option in Word. So to sum up our discussion today, in the business world, we don't want more, unlike your lit classes. Time is money, time is an opportunity, right? It is a scarce resource. So we really have to use it wisely. What follows here is a series of examples for further training, if you like, on the active and passive voice. Some examples you might want to take a look at. In the business world, we also use the active voice to convey confidence and authority on a certain topic. So have at that if you like.